My name is Doug Ayers, and I'm excited to introduce Chatterbot for Feeds. This solution enables you to post chatter messages authored by any user. The best part is that we can automate these messages with Process Builder or Flow. Now I know there's already many ways to post chatter messages natively on the Salesforce platform. We could use Process Builder, Flow, Apex, and even the API. However, no single approach satisfied all of my requirements. No single mechanism for making a chatter post allowed me to do all four of my requirements. One, that it would be launchable by Process Builder or Flow. Two, that it would support setting the author to someone other than the running user. Three, that it would support rich text. I want bold, underlines, bullets, links. And support @mentions so that I can loop in other groups or users to the conversation. To learn more about my design decisions, please check out my blog post at douglascayers.com, as well as read the rest of the README here on the GitHub project. For the rest of this tutorial, I won't get into all of the technical reasons for why we need to walk through some of these steps, but just try and help you get started as quickly as possible. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Our first step here is to deploy a related project, Chatterbot for Groups. This is in support of the examples that come bundled with Chatterbot for Feeds. The main purpose of the project is to automate chatter posts when users are joining or leaving groups. That isn't the only use case, but for these examples, that's the one we're working with. So we'll open up Chatterbot for Groups so we can get that in our org. And why we even have this extra project is because Process Builder at this time does not support taking action when users join or leave groups. But Chatterbot for Groups fills in that gap and makes it possible. So we'll go ahead and deploy from GitHub. And we're using the GitHub Salesforce deploy tool developed by Andy Fawcett. And you can learn more about Andy at andyinthecloud.com. So we'll go ahead and log in. If this is your first time using this tool, you may be prompted to authorize the app. Go ahead and click Accept. When you're back on this page, go ahead and click Deploy. We can monitor the progress in the bottom left. Great, this is deployed. So we'll come back over into our org, refresh the page. I'm going to switch over to the Chatterbot Groups app. First thing we need to do is create a new group. I'll call this new group Chatterbot Support. Click Save. Awesome. Now we need to take that group ID, which we can get from the URL. I'll copy that, come over to the Chatterbot Groups tab, click our first record, paste that ID, make sure that our active box is checked, and then click Save. Now, anytime this group is updated, this information will fill in. And more importantly, whenever users join or leave the group, we'll get some records in the Chatterbot group members related list. That's what will enable us to use Process Builder to take action as users join or leave. Okay, so let's come back to our instructions. Now that we have Chatterbot for Groups set up, now we need to deploy Chatterbot for Feeds. Open that link. Back to our GitHub Salesforce deploy tool. We'll log in, then we'll deploy, monitor the progress here on the left, almost done. Great. Our next step is to create an email service using the Apex class Chatterbot Post Message Email Handler. So we'll copy that. And then we'll need to set up an email address, choose who we want our context user to be, and then we'll take note of that generated email address for the service because we'll use that in a future step. Okay, so back over in Salesforce, let's go into Setup. We'll navigate down to Email Services. We'll set up our first email service. The email service name, we'll call this Chatterbot Post Message Email Service. At Apex class, we need to look for Chatterbot Post Message Email Handler. Make sure that this is active. We do want to enable error routing. And put your email address here. Now we'll save and generate a new service email address. This means that Salesforce is going to create a unique email address that we'll be able to use for Chatterbot for Feeds. The important piece on this page is who the context user is. This has nothing to do with who the author will be of these chatter posts, but rather needs to be a system administrator in your org. It could be you, or maybe you have another user that you'd like to use. But what we do need to do is take out this accept email from box so that we're not filtering or limiting the inbound messages. We'll click Save. Now I'll leave this up because we're going to need this generated email address in a future step. Let's come back to our instructions. Now we need to assign the Chatterbot Feeds admin permission set to the context user we used when we set up that service. This is going to allow that context user to be able to set the author for the new chatter post to someone other than the current user. Okay, so back in Setup, we'll navigate to Users, find My User. I chose myself as the context user. I need to edit my permission sets. And here I've made sure that I have both Chatterbot Feeds and Chatterbot Groups admin permission sets assigned. Back to our instructions. Now we need to create a chatter free user and set their email address to be the same as the email service address that we just generated. I won't go into all of the technical reasons behind this, but in short, this is to overcome an apex limitation in the number of emails that we are allowed to send per day from your org, but we're able to send an unlimited number of emails to users in your org. That's really all you need to know, but let's get back into our org. I'm going to copy this email address. I don't know if this is in every org, but I do know that in all the new developer orgs, there's often a chatter expert user who already has the chatter-free user profile and license type. So if you wanted to, you can repurpose this user so that we set the email address, or you can go ahead and create a brand new chatter-free user. The great thing about using the chatter-free user license is, well, it's free. It doesn't cost anything. But we're going to, instead of having this no reply email address, I'm going to paste in my email service email address. Now, if I were to just try and click Save now, Salesforce is going to want to send a verification email before it takes effect. I don't want that. So instead, a workaround is to come down to the bottom and check the Generate New Password and Notify User immediately. This will update the user's email address right now, and we don't have to wait for a verification. Great. Next step. We need to create a default organization default value for the Chatterbot Feeds custom setting. And we're going to set the one field on that setting, the email service address user ID, to the value of that chatter-free user that we just configured. Okay. So back in Setup, we go to Custom Settings. find the Chatterbot feed setting. We'll manage that custom setting. We need to create a new default org level value. So we'll click this new button at the top, which is different from this value at the bottom when you're setting up hierarchical values at the profile or user level. We're going to set one up at the org level. And we need to enter that user ID. Come back. Let's see, what's the user ID of Chatter Expert? We're going to grab that from the URL. Paste that in our custom setting. And save. And again, this has nothing to do with the context user of the email service, the admin who will actually create the posts and assign the author. This is really just a workaround for using the email service so that we can send outbound emails without using up your quota. You'll thank me later for that. Next, it's time to test. Awesome. So now that we have Chatterbot for Groups installed and monitoring, we can go back to that group and we can add a user. And if everything's gone okay, then Chatterbot for Feeds will make a welcome post as the author of our choice. So we'll come back into Salesforce. Now you may be asking, well, I haven't set who the author is. Well, who's doing this? What's doing this? Great question. Let's go ahead and open up Process Builder. And we'll look at the example process that came with Chatterbot for Feeds. So you'll see two processes. Chatterbot for Groups gave us a trivial one, which would say hello or goodbye whenever the user joins or leaves a group. But Chatterbot for Feeds is going to be a little more powerful. Whenever that group member joins the group, we're going to invoke an Apex class, and we're going to be able to set the author. Who is it that we want this post to come from? We'll also set who we want the post to go to, a user, a group, or another record. And then we're able to use an email template to specify the rich text of the chatter post. By default, this process is going to launch and run as the current user, but that's no fun. Let's go ahead and clone this process and choose someone we want to impersonate. Maybe I do want all my chatter posts to come from Chatter Expert. I can do that. So I'll copy this ID again. But really, at this point for Process Builder, we could choose any of these other users, and these automated chatter posts would be made by them. I just like using Chatter Expert because it's got chatter in the name. So in our clone process, we'll come back, and I'm going to change that author user ID. I don't want it to be whoever's running, me. We'll change it to be posts need to be made by Chatter Expert. Now for this example, I am hard coding the ID into Process Builder. That's not a best practice. I would recommend that you would store this value perhaps in a custom hierarchical setting or some other way so that you're not hard coding it into the process. We'll click Save, activate our new process version. Now we'll come back, we'll go to our group, the Chatterbot support group we created earlier, and let's add a member. Let's add the security user to our group. And we'll click Done. And there we go. Chatter Expert has posted a message to the new group member welcoming them to the group. We see that @mentions are supported. We've looped in the group. Rich text. We've got bold, bullets. We've also @mentioned the user itself. And we also show examples of all the other rich text formatting that you can use. And there you have it. Chatterbot for Feeds, automating posts authored by any user and supporting @mentions and rich text. Thank you.